Righto. So today what we'll be going through is introducing Project 3. So this will be our last session before we have holidays, and so start arm you guys with a little bit of information to carry on. But also just in regards to this Project 3 as well, in pouring through it, there is a bit more to, well, for myself to confirm in regards to the landscaping, the plantings and things like that. When we had the open day here for external students to come in to talk with building consultants, etc., Merryn suggested to me that if I know anybody who works in landscaping, that I contact them to come in to have a talk about things. And I've got a friend who's a landscape architect who works for the Adelaide City Council, and in going through this, I think she's actually the perfect person to speak to if I can nail her down for talking about this sort of stuff. So what I'm going to try to do is, during the holidays, see if I can catch up with her, have a bit of a chat about some aspects specific to this, and see if I can then produce a video to put up during the holidays for you guys in regards to that. So it all depends on on her willingness and her time schedule and so on, and whether she can do that for me during the holidays or not. So I can't say certain that anything is going to happen in that space. But before we go talking about plantings and landscaping and things like that for this project, I want to see what information I can gather for that first. So we'll leave that aside for now. So have either of you had a look at Project 3?
Not yet.
Yeah.
I've seen the building before though, in different class.
Yeah. Yeah. So to start with, we've got a 3-story office building, and it's to be located at number 288 North Terrace in Adelaide. Now, does anybody know what's at number 288 North Terrace, Adelaide?
No, it's not the Cornews, is it?
No, but that'd be an interesting site to do. Yeah, in O'Connell Street, the Cornews. Yeah. No, it's not. So, but I'll just bring up SA Map Viewer. So, get that happening. 288 North. North Terrace, Adelaide. So does that location ring any bells for some people? So this is East Terrace. This is East Terrace here. North Terrace here, where we've got that.
Oh, that's not the Royal where the hospital was.
So straight across the road, hospital.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the old Royal Adelaide Hospital. So a lot of work happening here. A lot of changes happening here with land use.
So what's that then across the road?
This one here.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a place called Ayres House.
Okay.
So it's actually it's a very, very historic landmark. So there has to be I guess essentially for this project a bit of suspension of belief in that I'm pretty sure if we were to bring the bulldozers in, there'd be a lot of people with a lot of things to say. So we treat this as a vacant site, that this property doesn't exist. But one thing that does allow you to do, though, if you do spend any time in the city or have an opportunity to take a wander around the city, is because this is public space, you can have a look at this site. So unlike the other sites which are private properties, we don't really have so much opportunity to look at those. This one we can. So there's a great deal of information that can be gained um, from SA Map Viewer and looking at sites and from.
Is that a tram thing in the middle?
Yeah, so
Oh,
that's
okay. So that's fairly new, is it?
that is. So that's still they're still working on that
Oh,
at the
okay.
moment. So I don't know how recently updated this picture was.
I don't go into the city a lot. So
Yeah.
last time I was there, that wasn't there.
Yeah. Well, it's yeah. To be honest, I haven't driven down North Terrace in a little while.
Yeah, avoid it.
Either.
Avoid the city.
Yeah. So it may be fully functional now. Anyhow.
Is that the T to T, whatever they were talking about? Is that part of that, or
The what?
Is it the T to T they
What?
call it?
I don't know what they call it.
Oh, okay. I know there's a big job at the moment, T to T, whatever they call it. I'm not sure what it is.
Okay. Yeah. No, I'll have to have a look at that as well. So yeah. But there's an important thing to note, that we've got a tram stop right out in front of this place. Also, for those of you that would know the site, so just a little bit of familiarity. So right on the corner here, you've got the Botanic Hotel. So Botanic Hotel, it's got a lot of plantings around the outside. There's a lot of greenery which happens there, and then you've got, just in here, you've got a restaurant called Africola, which also is sort of an African themed restaurant, very, very high end, that's got a whole bunch of plantings and outdoor seating and so on happening on this section to East Terrace as well. To continue that, so there's a great deal of greenery tied up with the building on the corner here. Going along from that, has anybody ever noticed these old apartments here along this section here? Have you noticed those?
I have, but I've never really
taken
a lot of notice of them. But
yeah,
I know they're there.
Yeah, so they're 3-story Victorian style apartments that they've got a basement area to them, and then first floor, and then second floor. Some of them are a little bit run down, some of them have been renovated to quite a good extent. They're in varying conditions, but their character, how to say it, there's a great deal of character to those places. Following on from that, you've got this large building here. I'm not sure, so we've got various different sort of retail / office tenancies happening in this building here, but you've also got, right at the front here, you've got a 7-Eleven. So you've got steps up from North Terrace, and also an access ramp on this side here, and a small undercover area with a 7-Eleven, or 7-Eleven, I don't know, some sort of like
convenience store.
Yeah, some sort of convenience store, that's the word I was looking for. Great, yeah, because it might be an IGA or something. So you've got some sort of convenience store there. If you follow down through this Paxton Walk area, fairly quickly you get into more hotel and restaurant spaces. This one here, I think, it's been a long time since I've been here. I think what it was called. There used to be some British themed pub there.
It's not in London. I think that's a bit further up.
Yeah, I think it's got something to do with elephant, owl and elephant, or something.
Elephant and wheelbarrow.
Elephant wheelbarrow. I reckon that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a British themed pub there on the corner. Over this side, last I saw, there was a restaurant at ground level, and this is a cinema complex. So I'm starting to realise how little time I spend in the city as well. Because I used to live just in one of these places just here. So,
oh yeah.
Yeah. So so that area I knew like the back of my hand sort of 15 years ago. But,
when you were young.
but things have changed, and I'm trying to think of what's changed.
What's the museum?
And what's changed now in that time. So this section here is now a multi-story car park. So there's a great deal of parking facilities just here. But we've got hotel areas, and then there's the Exeter Hotel here as well. That hasn't changed, and may never change might not change for a long time. With outdoor seating, the main thing I wanted to talk about though is that there is a lot of nighttime activity here. There is a lot of pedestrian traffic between North Terrace and Rundle Street at this point, and with the inclusion of a tram stop here, I envisage that pedestrian traffic through there will be significantly increased as well, and also with the impacts of what's happening here in whether it's going to be accommodation or what the use of that's going to have impacts on this area. And then we also have that large scale parking facility there. So a lot of pedestrian access during the day for those related to those activities.
The site that we're on now, is that a fence going around it, or is it just open grounds?
It's significantly open.
Okay.
So that fence, actually maybe, okay, I'll bring up Google Maps as well. I don't know if we got, actually I should see if we got Google Earth actually on this computer. I hadn't. No, he's not to be sitting right next to Google Chrome if we did, I think. Yeah, grab Google Maps so we can drop the little guy onto the street to have a look at that front fence there. So there we have it, Ayres House Museum. Drop our fella onto the street.
It's really
so
open.
Yeah.
That's it across the road.
Yes, that's it. That's it across the road. So about that shadow of about a metre high.
Stone.
That stone.
That you wouldn't be able to touch that.
No.
I highly doubt.
Yeah.
If you had to do anything to that, that looks to me like an old stone and brick fence. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Blue stone with brick capping. I wonder if we can actually cross the road. Yes. Great. Okay.
Oh yeah.
So our project ignores the fact that we have a heritage building there on site. We're not. We're dealing
the fence then, or
I'm fairly sure we do ignore the fence on that. So what we're given for our project is one access point, a single access point, and it's important to understand that access point and also think about how that works.
So is that access point is it a driveway?
Yes.
So should we assume that there's access from North Terrace to drive into the block? Okay.
Yeah. And within the council zoning, there is mention of how we should treat and how we should think about those access points in terms of limiting the disturbance to the use of the road, pedestrian access, etc., and being right by the tram stop there. That would be a very important thing, I think, for Adelaide City Council. But also that tram stop there means that we can only access from one direction as well. So we can't have vehicles coming down North Terrace making a right-hand turn into the place as well.
It spins me out how they design cities. Like, there's no need for cars to be in there. Is there? There's no need for a car to be in this. So why not build these car parks that you're building all over the city, on the outside of the city?
Yeah, yeah. No, I definitely tend to agree with you
Yeah,
on
like the
that.
city's
In
just,
terms,
it's so full as it is. Like you don't need there's no need for a car to be in there whatsoever.
mm,
Other than like
yeah,
your emergency services and whatever tradespeople you need to come in and through because they obviously hauling tools, but most people don't need a. I'm dead against
so
public transport. I hate it, but I'm
yeah,
going to catch the bus to work because it drops me off out the front. Like
yeah, 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 yeah.
I've only been there 2 days and I've already got an $80 parking ticket. Like, yeah, I think they need to start planning the city a little bit better.
Yeah, and I look, I don't know if you're in the majority there. I definitely agree with you on that. Yeah, because I've lived in several different cities, and I guess you bring some experience from China as well as
Yeah.
to how high density urban living happens there. But I lived in the Netherlands, which is the second most highly dense, second highest density of population in the world, only to Bangladesh.
Yeah.
So Bangladesh,
You
Netherlands,
wouldn't put
and then
those two together, would you? Like you wouldn't
no,
put
well,
Bangladesh and the Netherlands.
yeah, but in population density,
Yeah.
yeah, and that's looking at it in a nation. That's not looking at it in terms of a geographic area. I think if you
Yeah.
look at it in terms of a geographic area, then possibly Tokyo
Yeah.
or where places where you've just got um,
Yeah.
yeah, massive tall things where people live on houses of two tatami mats. But in terms of national, yeah, so very very densely populated country. There and they because of that they've worked out ways to use space very well, and by being there you probably wouldn't think, okay, this is the second most densely populated place in the world because they are very efficient with the use of space, etc. The the small city that I lived in for a while, that had the vast majority of that city centre closed off to traffic. It was pedestrian and bicycle access only, and so this is for well, it was a very small, initially a medieval city, and it was a Roman settlement because it was part of the Netherlands that was up high. A lot of the Netherlands wasn't. Anyhow, yeah, in that space, I could see that pedestrian access, the limiting of vehicle access into a city centre actually works really well because everything becomes a much smaller scale. It's a human scale. There's far more social interaction and use of those streets because they're safe. You're not worried about kids running off,
Yeah.
for vehicles and things like that because yeah, you don't have typically you don't have vehicles coming in, and they have electronic bollards that enable vehicles to come in, certain vehicles at certain times.
That's clever.
So you have a magnetic card goes, okay, yeah, I'm this delivery truck, I'm coming in between 7:30 and 8:30 in the morning, and yeah, and so you still have vehicle access to all these shops, things like that. But yes, yeah, I think places like Australia, it's certainly, how I say it, gone from Australia's always had this luxury of a lot of space, and people go, yep, I want a huge backyard, I want all these sorts of things that predominantly European migrants, English migrants could not have back home in England. That has led to a huge amount of urban sprawl and to people using cars to get into the city because they're travelling for very long distances over very low, well, yeah, over areas with very low population density. So it's made us very car centric, and there are people that are still very attached to that idea. And so yes, Australia does need to go through this transition, and yeah, and we're very lucky that we've got so many countries in which who have done all that beforehand, and we can pinch ideas from. Yeah, Congo, is there
Yeah.
much that you can share in
Yeah,
that
if
regard?
you, I mean, if you want to change this situation, another solution is you need to upgrade your public transportation system.
Yeah,
In
Take it away
Australia, I
from
don't think,
Transfield.
bus line bus routine is very punctual time. Is very bus line to. You can take bus everywhere, but in China you can take bus everywhere. The bus
yes,
line is very public transportation is very good. So
Yeah.
you have to need a car to go where you want to go.
Yeah,
Private car.
and I guess that's something that sort of has to happen in an incremental approach, or that we have to rethink our public transport system. One thing I spent a bit of time in Turkey and South America as well, where a lot of the public transport in those areas happens with very small buses. So in Istanbul, you've got these little buses called dolmuş, which are, you fit 12 people in there, or 18 people in there, and they don't have regular times they leave. It's just you have a whole bunch of them at this spot, and they've got it written up top where they're going, and you get in there, and quite often they're going very regularly, like every few minutes or so, and you go to all the, because they're tiny little buses, you end up going past these places. They cover a very, how do I say it, very dense network of the city, rather than major transport routes, and then you have to get out and walk for a really long way, which is what we have to do in Australia. So it's once again very different, and that's probably very similar to, is that
I think in
China?
Gold Coast, there's a train between Gold Coast and Brisbane.
Yeah.
And the train station, there's a very big car park there, so people can park their private car there, and transfer to the train to Brisbane to work. People live in Gold Coast, just park their car in the train station, and transfer to the train to Brisbane.
Yeah.
They don't have to drive to Brisbane to work.
Yeah.
So I think that's another solution. Build a big car park.
Yeah.
Near to the train station.
And essentially that is something that Adelaide is implementing quite a lot. So in Hindmarsh there, we've got the park and ride. So you can park in Hindmarsh, and then you get on the tram at the entertainment centre, and then catch the tram into the city. It's not such a organised park and ride scenario from, what's it called, Peacock Road, from what is it, South Terrace into the city. But you guys know where the tram is at South Terrace. From what is it called? It's at that point I think it's Wavell. It's sort of Wavell Parkside area on South Terrace. There's a tram stop there, and then around those parklands you've got 10-hour parking areas and 8-hour parking areas, so you can park your vehicle all day, jump on the tram, go into the city. So we've got those things, and also there's just been that upgrade to the O-Bahn as well. So the O-Bahn, which comes in from the north-eastern suburbs, but that O-Bahn picks up a lot of, so you've got buses from Salisbury and Elizabeth, etc., that head through Tea Tree Gully, Tea Tree Plaza area, from there, actually a lot of those buses go onto the O-Bahn themselves, come down through the O-Bahn, and there's been that extension to the O-Bahn that brings that right onto, is it Grenfell Street in the city? Have you guys seen that extension to the O-Bahn?
Yeah, I have seen that extension to the O-Bahn.
Yeah. And so that cuts out that travel time from Hackney Road, so it disappears under the ground at Hackney Road, goes under
the wine centre.
Yeah, and then pops out right at the start of Grenfell Street to get people into the city much quicker as well. So, and the O-Bahn is once again one of those things that works like a park and ride, that you go to the OG road stop and park there, catch the O-Bahn in, or further out Paradise.
More park and rides at the actual, like Morbury Interchange has got one now, a big park and ride. So I think that's their plan, to put them at the interchanges, get more people able to park there by going up rather than just a ground level car park.
And that's what I've been doing recently. Drive down from the hills, go to Paradise, get on O-Bahn, go into town, like that. It's actually quicker than driving in. So, during when it's busy time, peak time. So there is, and if we think about our location, the location of this property, that is serviced very well by public transport. You know, as much as we have to put in our 2 cents about public transport in Adelaide, this one is right next to that tram stop. That tram stop links up with the parking facilities around the South Parklands. It links up with the parking facilities in Hindmarsh. And then also, just a couple streets over, we've got where the new Obarn extension comes out as well. So back to our SA map viewer. So we have a lot of pedestrian access through here. Just quickly shoot to topography. I'll just close that one down. So when we look at our topographic map for this area, so these are in these contours are in 2 meter intervals. We've got very little slope through here. So and for any of you that know this area, you'd know that there is, so Paxton's Walk here and this development here, that's built up. Then we have a retaining wall that separates those. So there's a retaining wall that runs through here along the side of our subject property, and then the subject property is basically entirely flat. So I wonder if we can see any of that. No, we can't see so much in terms of that retaining wall. Oh, look at that. Oh, we can head up. You can head up Paxton Walk. That's great. Okay. So, actually, okay. So that's something that's changed as well. Okay. So, yeah. Oh no, it hasn't. No. Okay. So these stairs. This is that elevated section for our retail and office development next door, and then we've got the stairs down and this area, and then this brick wall here acts also as a short retaining wall between Paxton Walk and.
So there'd be some steps on the other side of that gate.
Actually, no. There's none. All right. Oh.
So the retaining wall is done by the concrete stairs.
Yeah.
That's the retaining wall there.
Yeah.
Because that's flat ground. Yeah.
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 That is. Yeah. There's no step on the side of that.
So they have special drains there, wouldn't they? Yeah. There's one right there.
There's one right there. Yeah. Maybe you should not operate too much from memory. Yeah, because I remembered there was some sort of retaining type feature, but maybe this is being
retained. But
by the stairs.
The concrete stairs have been built in this such that it's a retaining wall as well.
Yeah, possibly there used to be a wall here or something.
Yeah, and I'd say those brickworks would have been part of it, and they wouldn't have been allowed to move them.
Mm-hmm.
That they'd be some reason they would have had to keep those because what are they doing there?
Yeah.
Maybe the brick is heritage or something. I don't know.
Yeah. But yes, so we have a very flat site here. There's not a huge amount of slope, but our slope is in this direction. So higher here and lower down toward the front, which works very well for drainage. But yeah, if either of you have any time to spend in the city and have a walk around here, it's public. So get
for a beer.
Yeah. on a warm evening. Got a few warm evenings coming up. So there's still that English pub on the corner there. The Elephant. Right. And East End Cinemas. So yeah, as we can see, a great deal of pedestrian traffic through here, both during the daytime and at night time. Pedestrian traffic at night time obviously makes us think about security and visibility into this site at night time. So that's the context of our area. Also playing into that context. Actually, I'll head over and we'll have a quick look at the front of the Botanic Hotel as well. It's not letting me go down the street. So here we are out in front of the Botanic Gardens. So there's a great deal of greenery and joining our parklands. And this is what I wanted to show you in terms of the Botanic Hotel. So what they've done is they've incorporated a great deal of greenery as screening for the outdoor seating areas. And then just quickly scooting around the corner, looking at Botanic Hotel from this side, and that's that Apicola restaurant I was speaking about there. So there's a great deal of greenery incorporated in that area, and also across the road. So in what's that? Sorry, I just clicked on the wrong bit, and that would take us a little while. So, client brief. The current plan for this new build are to be converted to the following: ground level showroom, class 6D. So they're wanting a showroom there at this location. Level 1, open
Showroom
plan.
for what though?
Well, we don't know
Okay.
just yet. And that's the thing about predominantly about retail and show. A lot of the inner city type development that you've got, the offices, retail, showroom, is that you get tenancies changing significantly, and you'll have like say for example, when David Jones was built in the city, I did a little bit of work with the organising leases and tenancies for doing evaluation of that, and so I had a bit of a window into that tenancy procedure for that. There was, whilst that place was still in construction, having evaluation done, that valuation was based on leases which are already signed for that David Jones building. Obviously they had their major tenant, David Jones, as the anchor tenant, but then there were many smaller tenancies throughout there. And what was being coordinated with that were negotiations around tenancies and around areas to be used by various different tenants. And that's while the building was already under construction. So the building was already designed, things were being built, and at that point there's still negotiation and determining of who is going to be renting what space and filling out those spaces. What we can take away from that is that these designs need to be fairly flexible in their, in their ability. Are we going to use it for this? Are we going to use it for this? Are we going to use it for that? And that's much of the approach that needs to be taken to these major developments in the city, because things fluctuate significantly. So we could, we'll just quickly, any ideas what sort of showroom would we have there at this location?
Fashion. What is it? We got residential apartments going in any of these stores?
No. So we've got.
I was going to say,
so we've got office.
Showroom for one of those.
Yeah. So
it'd have to be retail or something. It wouldn't, it wouldn't be a car showroom because you wouldn't get the cars in there. It'd have to be like clothes, fashion, I would say.
Yeah.
What were you thinking?
Yeah. Well, so this is so I'll have to confirm this, and I'll have to see how much I'm allowed to control in this one, and thinking about that. From what I can see previously, there have been people who have specified it as a car showroom.
Oh, okay.
But you make a very good point. What's our access going to be? So we're bringing cars in on a several deck trailer on.
Not only that, cars generally have, for instance, Ferrari in the city
Mm-hmm.
is on the corner of West Terrace, across the road from Macca's,
Yeah.
and it have 4 or 5 cars in the showroom, maybe not even that, but there'll be a warehouse or something at the back where
Yeah.
they've got the
Yeah.
stuff to sell, you know,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
so there'd have to be, if you're showing off cars there, there'd have to be a lot somewhere to park your rest of your cars on.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
thought.
Yep. Yeah. So I think so we'll have to think about those uses of that showroom and what our layouts should be. But so we have this current design and we're working within that design, and this is our showroom at the back. So I'll have to work out what we can allow for that use in there. Then level 1 open plan office for 20 staff. And then level 2, 5 individual offices. So we've got open plan office on the level 2, and then individual offices up above that, and showroom beneath. Yeah. Maybe. What would we show off there in that location? It'd be very high end stuff.
Yeah.
It'd be like possibly lighting, probably not furniture. Yeah.
Well, furniture takes up every furniture showroom I've been to takes up quite a lot of showroom.
Yes. Yeah.
Like they've got different
and
rooms set up
that's
everywhere.
A lot about, it's predominantly about so it's so something that's not significantly about. So we've got small storerooms here, got a consultation area, and then a showroom.
Motorbikes would be a good one because you just push them in there. They go through any door. They don't take up a lot of room.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I mean, I've been to some tiny little motorbike shops.
Mm-hmm.
They're normally like not much bigger than a sporting shop or a lot, tiny. There's hundreds of them in there.
Yeah. Well, actually, look, I can. Yeah. What I'll do is I'll open that up. Open that what we show off in there. Open that up to you to think about. Okay, these are the constraints that we have. This is the area that we have. This is our building. Yeah. What things are we gonna put in there? What things we're gonna put in our showroom for that? So have a think about that. Yeah. But don't bind yourself down. Yes, possibly computing, like or Apple or something
The problem
like
with
that.
that is there's a massive Apple like 5 minutes away from it.
Yeah. Yeah. So we have showroom lower level, and then open plan office above that, and then individual offices above that. So confirm dimensions, materials, conformity of information provided to compliance and client requirements. So like other projects, we're going to have our client consultation, our building design consultation, our council consultations. So you're going to have to do some site analysis, and we've had a fair discussion about the site currently. Then we've got to have to look at landscaping requirements and conservation. So hopefully in the break, I'll be able to have a decent discussion with Grace about the considerations for the Adelaide City Council, what they're wanting to do at the moment.
Does the car showroom or a motorbike showroom really lend itself to conservation?
Oh, in terms of the broader impacts. Well, no, it doesn't. But the council are not. Yeah, certainly within the council's plan and within their statements, they talk about environmental sustainability and the support of that environmental sustainability in a bigger picture. But certainly, as you know, and the Adelaide City Council can't go, all right, we're not going to have any car showrooms here. We're not going to have these things here. It's a place for retail. There's basically any yes, okay, cars have arguably a greater environmental impact than many other forms of retail, but still retail has a significant environmental impact as well.
I was just thinking maybe like given the concept like the brief, maybe a sustainability showroom. With all different companies that come together.
Well, electric bicycles.
Yeah, well,
maybe,
that sort of
or-
stuff. Just,
Yeah.
just thinking out loud.
Yeah, yes, yeah, yeah, yeah. So, but what we're talking about here, landscaping requirements and conservation, that's more in terms of thinking about our species of plants that are going to go in there. How does that work with our urban environment? So it's very important within the city to bring trees and plants into the city to help attenuate some of that heat. So for some, as you probably know, Adelaide City gets very hot on a hot day. There's a great deal of heat emitted both from buildings and road surfaces and reflection of heat. Plantings and trees are a way of approaching that. But also, it's important to still support biodiversity within the city as well. So for the plants and animals, etc., that exist in the city, how can we play into that? So our landscaping requirements and conservation, looking at that. But hopefully I get a much better idea of all of that when I speak to the landscape architect. Access and egress, site and structure. So yes, we have to think about our building on the site, whether we need to rotate that building at all, move it around, etc. How that building is going to work on the site, how that is going to work with our access and egress. So we've got one point of access, but we've also got that tram stop out the front, making it a very busy location. So we have to think about that. Once again, disability access to site, structure and toilets. So you will have addressed that to a significant extent in project number 2. So disabled parking, disabled access, but we're going to have to, I guess, look into that disabled access a little bit further with this one. I guess we're dealing with a very flat site, so probably no ramps for accessibility. However, yeah, we'll still need to have go through that disabled access and also disabled toilets as well within an office setting. Power requirements. So have a look at who's going to be providing the power there to the site, and then we have to have a look at the development plan. So no surprises there. Our development plan is Adelaide City.
I'm sure they're a pleasure to deal with.
I think.
Or maybe it's North Adelaide I'm thinking of.
Well, so North Adelaide are the same.
Are they?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The thing with the development plan for Adelaide is that there are so many people that have a stake in what is stipulated within that development plan. So we'll have a look at that. Actually, that's a decent segue. Let's have a look at that development plan now.
I know that they were real difficult to deal with Adelaide Oval.
Yeah.
Just in regards to parking, we weren't provided with any, and they were real hard on us. They would have made. I reckon I seriously left there with $4,000 worth of parking tickets.
Yeah.
Yeah. You had blokes that were concreters that were in the middle of pours, happened to run out and shift their cars. It was no, I don't know, they didn't give a lot of thought to the infrastructure behind the construction of the site, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think parking is one of those things that it takes up a lot of space, and yeah, people want that, and and if you have you've got dedicated, we've got parking spaces for people working on Adelaide Oval. You've probably got normal commuters who want to exploit that as well, and it's a very difficult thing to control.
The only place you could get that was free was up the top by the golf course, if you got like sort of around the back, but then they ended up cottoning on to that was free and started like getting onto people again,
right,
flicking the back of their tyres, saying no, it's for you're working here, it's not really a park for that. And
right. Yeah. So Adelaide City Council, that takes in North Adelaide as well. So for those of you fairly familiar with the map, this is Port Road here. So the West End Brewery here. That's during Christmas time. That's where they got all the things going on the Torrens. There, across to Park Terrace. So this is the old Clipsal site just in here where my cursor is. Up to Fitzroy Terrace. So we've got the North Adelaide Aquatic Centre in there, and the house along Fitzroy Terrace, Robe Terrace. So all residential along there. Up here, that's where those horse paddocks are. Do you guys know those horse paddocks in North Adelaide? And around following Hackney Road, so our Botanic Park in here, and then Botanic Gardens in there, up to Duquetaville Terrace. So in this section here, this is where the racecourse is, along and Fullerton Road on that side, and then Green Hill Road heading down here. So this is all of our South Parklands there, and then back down to Port Road. Should I have to have a look at SA Map Viewer to see what's exactly in that location there? Oh, right. Yep. So Green Hill Road.
Very, very well mapped, isn't it?
What's that?
It's like very well mapped. Like they've got everything going on in there.
In terms of what does that?
Oh, just like how good you imagine there's a lot of stuff on top of each other in the city, and you would think that there'd be pockets where they didn't have like it mapped properly or anything, but it looks very good.
Very very well planned.
Yeah.
And this is the thing about if we were to look at this, look at what Adelaide City Council deals with. So there's a huge amount of parklands here, and some very active people that preserve those parklands as they're used. So we have our greater metropolitan area. A lot of people within this greater metropolitan area and our state have a stake in what's happening here in the city, even if it's only car parking and an occasional use of retail or nightlife or restaurants, etc. Then we've got areas in through here which are primarily residential, historically fairly low socio-economic residential, but that's changing a lot now. There's very decent prices being paid for places in around here, and a lot of gentrification going on there. Coming along through here, we've got a mix of offices and offices along King William Street, sections of residential, sections of high density residential, a great deal of social housing through here. So there's both community developments and housing trust developments throughout this area here. We've got...
If you've got a housing trust house in there, you'd be laughing. Yeah. Like $150 for a week to live in a place right in the city.
Yeah.
You'd be pretty happy with that, I'd imagine.
Yeah.
Considering I pay nearly $400 a week for a house in Paraka. That's all right. I'll hit someone up.
I know. Well, housing trust developments are housing trust developments, but yes, in the city, and some of the housing trust developments in the city are really pretty decent. Very very well located. So but you've got housing trust spattered throughout here, and those developments spattered throughout. Do any of you guys know about the community developments though in the city? Seen those? So what I'm trying to think of what the correct term for them. Predominantly, they're developments based around artists living together, and and so on, and I guess the state and federal governments aren't that conducive to them anymore. I don't know when the bulk of them were built and designed. I think sort of in around the mid-90s, there was a lot of that went on, whereby
you lived in Netherlands, didn't you?
Was that?
You said you lived in Netherlands? Well,
yeah.
don't they have, what is it? Is it Christiania or something?
Oh, that's in Denmark.
Is it?
Yeah.
That's its own little, like, bohemian sort of...
Yes.
Got its own laws and whatnot.
Yeah. So that's, I've never been to Christiania. From what just off the top of my head, it's a small island, and that whole island got squatted. So it was empty.
Yeah, right.
Squatters moved in, used it, occupied it, created a community, a very large community, and then it's gone on from that. Yeah, so that's a very well known one. But yes, there's a great deal of that happening in the Netherlands as well. That's happening. That happens in a far more informal sense. In a place like the Netherlands, they have legislation around squatting that if a place has been empty for a year or so, you can prove that it's been empty for a year. You're allowed to move in there, and then you use that space, and then you can create communities, and which you can do whatever you want essentially. But yeah.
So who owns it then?
What's that?
Does the obviously there's a certificate of title or something, someone owns that.
Yeah.
So do they still own it, or does it get transferred to the squatter?
So they still own it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I can chat to you a bit more about that indeed, because I know a fair bit about that in the Netherlands, but we'll keep it relevant here. So we've got these community developments in here, which are predominantly based around artists, etc. You do a short course to be able to know your roles and know how you work within these communities, and then you apply for a place in them, and it's a cheaper rent. It's capped at like 25% of your income or something like that. But anyhow, it's co-housing, and we've got a fair few of those throughout here as well. And then heading up to this area, we've got some very high-end residential. So some places worth a great deal of money and a great deal of historic conservation through there. Heading in through here, Flinders Street, Frome, Pulteney, etc. A mix of some retail, some hospitality, some office use, predominantly through here. Crossing back over this side, much the same type of thing around here. Then heading into this section, various different institutions. So we've got TAFE here, we've got City West University here. I think there's some sort of youth detention centre or so in here, in this remand centre. Got the new Royal Adelaide Hospital there, train station here. So a lot of publicly owned infrastructure, a lot of institution, and then predominantly retail through here, and once again universities, etc. through here.
So would that mean that the majority of those buildings with offices and shops and would they be multi-class buildings then?
Yeah, a lot of them are multi-classification buildings. And also another very interesting thing about many of the office buildings in the city, there's what's called a Class 4 building on top of them as well, which when they were built, a lot of so older developments used to have a caretaker which lived on site. They would have their own little unit or house. Also, friends of mine lived in can't remember the name of the building. Anyhow, it's right in the city. It's on Grenfell Street, between sort of Grenfell Street, Rundle Mall. Office building there actually has something that looks like a bungalow, like a 1920s bungalow-looking house. On the roof. But that's not that unusual. So you've got a whole lot of that happening as well. So these small tenancies within an office building or associated with an office building, that's what's called a Class 4 building. And then with with that, bundled into that whole crazy mix of things, then we've got North Adelaide here. So once again, a great deal of very high-end residential, a lot of historic buildings, once again, in North Adelaide, and sections of retail and hospitality, again, through there. So this is what Adelaide City Council deals with, and because they deal with that scenario of so many people within the state having a stake in what happens in the city, so many competing and co-opting uses within the city, they've got a great deal to manage. So looking then at our development plan, it's large. It's a big development plan for a small area. No, that's large enough for you guys to read fairly well from there. Shall I show you? So once again, laid out like all of our development plans, we have council-wide objectives and then zone-specific objectives as well. I'm not going to this time. I'm not going to go through what zone it is. It's up to you guys to go doing those sections and having a look at the zone specifically. However, for the sake of this exercise, we'll go through the council-wide objectives. I won't labour on this stuff too much. I guess we've covered that to an extent. The City of Adelaide is a prime meeting place and cultural focus for people of metropolitan Adelaide and the state. There's a major focus for tourism, conventions, leisure, entertainment, sport and recreation, education, cultural development of the arts, and development that enhances the public environment and provides interest at street level. So if we think about those things, that's what the City Council are going to be hot on, is how does your development work in a broader social context? How is it going to be seen from the street? What interstate, international visitors going to think about the contribution of your development to the urban landscape, etc. So have a good read through this. I guess some things I'll pull out. So development should, where appropriate, integrate public art into design, or design of new or refurbished building sites in a manner which is integrated with and commensurate in scale with the new or refurbished buildings for the purpose of enhancing the public environment, etc. And then we talks about what public art should do. Community. So we're not providing community facilities on ours currently. Yes, that site is a community, or it's a public building, but that's not our intention with the site. We're not dealing with city living ourselves. Things that impact upon city living, though, are noise and pollution. We won't be contributing significantly to that with our development being a 3-storey office building. So we'll quickly flick through there. We're not doing student accommodation. We're not doing land division. Not doing any low-scale residential, etc. So I'll keep moving through. Get us to, I think, page 38. So this deals with visual and acoustic privacy, etc., and design of residential developments within the city. So important to consider, but not so important for us. Keep scooting down, page 38. So environmental. Now, earlier I mentioned that this site is in close proximity to hotels, etc., places where people go out till late at night. and to into early hours of the morning. We don't have the same restrictions in Adelaide like they've brought in some other places, and yeah, and people are out on on Rundle Street. I really don't know what it's like these days. Back when I lived there, yeah, you had people leaving pubs at 4 o'clock in the morning and hanging out on the street making lots of noise and so on. But being right next to that pedestrian access between Rundle Street and North Terrace, this is an important thing for us. So environmental crime prevention through urban design. Objective 24, a safe and secure crime-resistant environment that ensures that land uses are integrated and designed to facilitate natural surveillance. So keep things visually open and well lit. We don't want to have dark corners and hidden areas, etc. around the city. Promotes building and site security and promotes visibility through the incorporation of clear lines of sight and appropriate lighting. So we have to think about that with the design. Principles of development control. Development should promote the safety and security of the community in the public realm and within development. Development should promote natural surveillance of the public realm, including open space, car parks, pedestrian routes, service lanes, public transport stops, residential areas through the design and location of physical features, electrical and mechanical devices, activities, and people to maximise visibility by orientating windows, doors and building entrances towards the street, open spaces, car parks, pedestrian routes, public transport, etc. So think about that with the orientation of the building. I think certainly for us it makes sense that our building is oriented so the main access that we use that North Terrace street frontage and we face our building toward that North.
Is this a
Terrace.
new building? Is this new or is it supposed to be taken as existing?
Yes, it's a new
so
building.
It's a new building.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so yeah, you can turn it around, etc. Avoiding high walls, blank facades, carports and landscaping that obscure direct views to public areas. Arranging living areas, windows, pedestrian paths and balconies to overlook recreation areas, entrances and car parks. So we'll certainly have entrances and car parks. Positioning recreational and public space areas so that they are bound by roads on at least 2 road frontages or overlooked by development. So we certainly have our North Terrace road frontage, and then we have that higher building next to us. That more. If I go back to Google Maps. This building here. So we've got this building next door, which overlooks. So we're meeting, just our site is simply meeting those very easily. Creating a complementary mix of day and nighttime activities such as residential, commercial, recreation and community uses that extend the duration and level of intensity of public activity. Some things we can do about that, some things of that are out of our control in terms of this development. Locating public toilets, telephones, other public facilities with direct access and good visibility from well-trafficked public spaces. Ensuring that rear service areas and access lanes are either secured or exposed to surveillance. And ensuring the surveillance of isolated locations throughout the use of audio monitors, emergency telephones or alarms, video cameras or staff. So we'll probably want to keep our rear area, our areas around the building, keep them open enough for that natural surveillance of the area. Provide access control by facilitating communication, escape and path finding within development through legible design. So we won't go through that individually. Promote territoriality or sense of ownership through physical features that express ownership and control over the environment and provide a clear delineation of public and private space. So they're wanting it to stay open, so that people can there's that surveillance of the property, but they want clear delineation of spaces. Provide awareness through design of what is around and what is ahead, so that legitimate users and observers can make an accurate assessment of the safety of a locality and site and plan their behaviour accordingly. So avoiding blind sharp corners, etc. Planting shrubs that have a mature height less than 1 metre and trees with a canopy that begins at 2 metres. So that's an important aspect. Use of robust and durable design features to discourage vandalism. Residential development should be designed. We're not dealing with residential development, so move on. And we're not licensed premises. I'm fairly sure that any of our uses aren't going to be giving off significant noise, but be aware that exists. So next area of consideration, waste management. Development which supports higher local environmental quality, promotes waste minimisation, reuse and recycling, encourages wastewater, grey water and stormwater reuse, and does not generate unacceptable levels of air, liquid or solid pollution. And you can go into these in detail. Let's have a look at this a little bit. A dedicated area for the collection and sorting of construction waste and the recycling of building materials during construction. Development greater than 2,000 square metres of total floor area should manage waste by containing a dedicated area for the collection and sorting of construction waste and recyclable building materials, on-site storage and management of waste, disposal of non-recyclable waste. So have a look to see whether it's going to be great. I have to have a look at the dimensions of it to see whether we're going to be over 2,000 square metres. I think we'll be under that. But yeah, in the building, well, certainly in the building phase, there's considerations there. Moving on. Page 45, energy efficiency. So this is, and I won't pour through the energy efficiency step by step, but I do expect that you do read this yourselves fairly thoroughly at home. So energy efficiency, it's on page 45, or it starts on page 45 and then continues on to 46 and 47, I think. Development which is compatible with long-term sustainability of the environment, minimises consumption of non-renewable resources and utilises alternative energy generation systems. Buildings should provide adequate thermal comfort for occupants and minimise the need for energy use for heating, cooling and lighting by, and then stipulates a host of ways that we can see to that. So providing an internal day living area with north-facing windows other than for minor additions, etc., etc. And then design techniques. These are one way of meeting part of the above principle. And yeah, so have a good read through this. In large part, some aspects will be dealing solely with residential and residential uses, but this is in the council-wide objective, so it's not simply just for residential, but for how we treat commercial as well. Likely sort. All right, you get page 55. What did I have on page 55? Pretty sure I wrote that down. I think Okay. Yeah, I wrote down page 55 as something to unlikely. Yeah. Oh, utilities and services. Okay. So for infrastructure, minimise the visual impact of infrastructure facilities, provision of service and infrastructure that are appropriate for the intended development and the desired character of the zone or policy area. So that may play into where you're going to be locating air conditioning and things like that. Provision should be made for utility services to the site of a development, including provision for the supply of water, gas, electricity, and for the satisfactory disposal and potential reuse of sewage, wastewater, drainage, and stormwater from the site of the development. Service structures, plant and equipment within a site should be designed to be an integral part of the development and should be suitably screened from public spaces or streets. Infrastructure and utility services, including provision for the supply of water, gas, electricity, should be put in common trenches or conduits. So with this point 133, we have a little bit of conflicting ideas in regards to that. So first of all, we've got the necessity for surveillance of the site, for people to be able to see what's happening there. So we want clear lines of sight into the back of the place, and so the public can see and observe what's happening there on the site. But then also we have to screen areas for utilities, etc. So it's about trying to meet both of those criteria. Okay, and this is fairly standard. Development should only occur where it has access to adequate utilities and services, including electricity supply, water supply, drainage and stormwater systems, effluent disposal systems, formed, or whether public roads, telecommunication services, and gas services. Now, being on North Terrace, I don't think we have significant issues with that, but the council will want that stipulated. So they'll want to see, okay, do you have all of those services on site? And are those services essential to what you're doing? Moving on to page 61. Height, bulk, and scale. So, like car parking, retention of parklands, height, bulk, and scale is also an incredibly important consideration for the Adelaide City Council, because with the height, bulk, and scale, you've got interplay of buildings, particularly overshadowing of buildings, but then also what happens with wind throughout the city as well. So it's something that the council has to manage, and something that's very important aspect for them. So development should be of a high standard of design and should reinforce the grid layout and distinctive urban character of the city by maintaining a clear distinction between the following: the intense urban development and built form of the town acres in the capital city, Main Street, mixed-use, city-framed, city living zones, and the less intense and more informal groupings of buildings set within the landscaped environment of the institutional zones. So we're right on the edge of this mix. So the intense urban development, and then also on the informal groupings of buildings set within the landscaped environment of the institutional zones. I won't go into exactly what zone we're in and what our neighbouring zones are. That's for you to have a look at. But be aware that straight across the road from there, you've got the old Royal Adelaide Hospital, which is right next to the universities there. But then in behind us, we're not that far from the main city centre. So we're in that sort of transition area between the two. And that's what this relates to. The historic character of the Adelaide North Adelaide Historic Conservation Zones grouping, so not us, an open landscape of parklands zone. We're also right near where the city starts transitioning into that parklands zone. Almost directly across the road from us is Botanic Gardens, and then you've got I can't think of what's the name of that park just on East Terrace there, where Garden of Unearthly Delights happens during the Fringe Festival. Think of that?
It's not the
Yeah.
Jonathan, is it? No, it's Rimmel?
Rymel Park, yeah, Rymel Park, yeah, Rymel Park, across there. So, the height and scale of development and the type of land use should reflect and respond to the role of the street it fronts. The height and scale and massing of buildings should reinforce the desired character, built form, public environment, scale, streetscape as contemplated within the zone and policy area. Have regard to maintaining consistent parapet lines, floor levels, height and massing with existing buildings consistent with the area's desired character. With this project, what we've got is we've got a design. It's going onto the site. That's it. We're not knocking a story off. We're not adding a story on. It is what it is in that regard. But given that it is what it is in that regard, you have to understand what the council wants in terms of those things, and we're going to be advocating for our development on the site. So that's is that on page 61?
Does the Revit file come with a list of materials like the first one, or are we just supposed to assume what the roof's made out of?
I haven't gone into that. Yeah.
Because that was a bit of a problem with the second one. There was no
Yeah,
information on
on the
what
materials
are.
Yeah.
Whereas the first one had that whole dossier of it, which made it a bit easy because you knew what everything was made out of.
Yeah. I suspect this one doesn't. Do you have that Revit file open?
Oh no, I'm playing around with this
second one.
Second one, yeah.
Yeah.
Assessment ready for that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So maybe we can open up that Revit file when we're finished with this. Have a quick look. So be aware that height, bulk, and scale are an important aspect for the council. Where possible, large sites should incorporate pedestrian links and combine them with publicly accessible open space. That's going to be an important aspect for us as well, given our location. Next aspect, page 65. Materials, colours and finishes. The design, external materials, colours and finishes of buildings should have regard to their surrounding townscape context, built form and public environment consistent with the desired character of the relevant zone and policy area. We've got a whole bunch of things happening in that bit there. So those character cottages next to the Botanic, they're rendered and they're in various different colours from light pinks to beige, etc. Then got the bluestone of the Botanic Hotel. I think it's bluestone actually. Yeah, maybe have to have a look at that. Then going to the west from there, we've got a lot of red brick and render and modern construction. And then flowing on from that further down the street, let's have a quick look. So yeah, so a lot of red brick and in there, what do we got? Sort of predominantly glazing and fibre cement sheet. No, trying to get us along the street a bit if we can do that. See what else we have along. No. From memory, I'm not getting us along the street here very well, but it looks like we have some off-form concrete and maybe some pebble dashed concrete or something like that. More 1980s type aesthetic there, and then a lot of red brick institutional buildings across the road from that. Yeah, quickly have a look at the Botanic Hotel, see what's Oh, actually, sorry. I thought these were all rendered. No, they're bluestone as well. It's just the the window surrounds, etc., are rendered some in coins, yeah, in pinks and beiges. So they're those character apartments that I was speaking about, the 3-story places. Some of them are split, have different accesses for the three stories. Some of them may be tenanted altogether. Yeah, can't really. Oh yes, there we go. Yeah, so stepping back from the Botanic, yeah, Bluestone building in the Botanic Hotel. Okay. So yeah, the designed external materials, colours and finishes of buildings should have regard to their surrounding townscape, context, built form and public environment consistent with the desired character of the relevant zone and policy area. Materials and finishes that are easily maintained and do not readily stain, discolour or deteriorate should be utilised. Developments should avoid the use of large expanses of highly reflective materials and large areas of monotonous sheer materials such as polished granite and curtain wall glazing. Okay, and page 76 was the next. That's right, bicycle parking. So adequate supply of on-site secure bicycle parking should be provided to meet the demand generated by the development within the site area of the development. Bicycle parking should be provided in accordance with the requirements set out in table Adelaide/6. So we'll just quickly go there. Bicycle parking. So we're not aged care, cafe, restaurant, child care centre, community centre, consulting rooms. Here we go. This is sounding a bit more like us. Offices, ancillary retail services, bank, office, service departments, etc. 1 per 200 square metres of gross leasable floor area. So bicycle parking space standard for employees and or residents, and then bicycle parking space standard for customers, visitors and or shoppers. So we have a showroom base, so 2 plus 1 per 1,000 square metres of gross leasable floor area. So we've got 1 per every 200 square metres, and then we've got another 2 plus 1 per 1,000 square metres of gross leasable floor area. So there'll be a few bicycle parks in this development. So be aware of the constraints around bicycle parking, and then page 77, so next one down. Traffic and vehicle access. So first thing under our objectives relating to traffic and vehicle access, development that supports a shift towards active and sustainable transport modes. So public transport, cycling and walking. An enhanced city environment and the maintenance of appropriate hierarchy of roads to distribute. So that's not going to be a consideration for us. Objective 70, adequate off-street facilities for loading and unloading of courier, delivery and service vehicles and access for emergency vehicles. So it may be a consideration for us having a showroom. Development should be designed so that vehicle access points for parking, servicing or deliveries and pedestrian access to a site are located to minimise traffic hazards and vehicle queuing on public roads. Access should be safe, convenient and suitable for the development on the site and should be obtained from minor streets and lanes unless otherwise stated in the provision of the relevant zone policy. So we're only going to have vehicle access from that North Terrace. So facilities for the loading and unloading of courier, delivery and service vehicles and access for emergency vehicles should be provided on site as appropriate to the size and nature of the development. Such facilities should be screened from public view and designed where possible so that vehicles may enter and leave in a forward direction. and then like in the environmentally sustainable design aspects, they give suggestions as to how that can be achieved. So that's on page 77 and 78. Then of consideration to us, so flowing on then to car parking. So to meet community expectations for parking supply while supporting a shift towards active and sustainable transport modes. Does anybody have an idea of what that sort of statement tells us? What does that make you think of in terms of parking? Certainly makes me think that, okay, Adelaide City Council want you to have adequate parking facilities, but they're conducive to the minimisation of parking facilities on the site. So they go, yes, you have to have adequate, but we're looking toward the future whereby parking is going to be less reliance on car parking. Hence, we don't want you just providing lots of parking on your site. So that statement is telling me they want to minimise parking, but there's a base level of parking that is required. And then adequate supply of short stay, long stay parking, etc. Flowing on that car parking. Okay. All developments should provide car parking spaces for people with disabilities in accordance with the requirements in the Building Code of Australia. For classes of buildings not covered by the requirements of the BCA, the number of spaces should be provided in accordance with Table Adelaide 7. And then also within City Living Zone, Adelaide Historic, North Adelaide Historic, mixed use and institutional zones. Car parking should be provided in accordance with Table Adelaide 7. So we'll go there. So non-residential development, excluding, hang on a sec, actually, sorry, offices, ancillary retail services, so 3 per 100 square metres of building floor area. And then parking for people with disability, minimum rate for reserved spaces. So general requirement, 1 car parking space in every 15 spaces provided with any form of development should function as a car parking space suitable for use by people with disabilities and other people with small children and prams, so they can be easily unloaded, loaded, etc. People with disabilities, every second parking space provided for people with special needs should be reserved for their exclusive use of people with disabilities, so 1 in 30 spaces. And then our last aspect in the council-wide objectives, which I saw that may be important to this one, is regulated trees. So the conservation of regulated trees that provide important aesthetic and environmental benefit. So the council wants to keep, so trees that are in the city, because they want to keep that greenery in the city, they want, so it's about retaining significant trees, because trees, you know, are something that as developers you can't build. They take time, and so they have to be protected where possible. Development in balancing with preserving regulated trees that demonstrate one or more of the following attributes. Significantly contributes to the character or visual amenity of the local area, indigenous to the local area, a rare or endangered species, an important habitat for native fauna. So development should have minimum adverse effects on regulated trees. So we're going to have to work out whether it is a regulated tree, and then what sort of condition that any of those trees are in. So a regulated tree should not be removed or damaged other than where it can be demonstrated that one or more of the following apply. The tree is diseased, represents a material risk to public or private safety, the tree is causing damage to a building, development that is reasonable and expected would not otherwise be possible, etc. So have a look at that, and then goes into significant trees. So the conservation of significant trees would provide important aesthetic and environmental benefit to the metropolitan Adelaide. Development should be designed and sited to retain any existing tree of substantial size and merit and existing trees, and accommodating and protecting their normal growth pattern. So pour through the protection of significant trees. So that starts, so for regulated trees, that starts on page 90. And then we're going through several pages. So I won't. Yeah. And then that's the extent of the aspects I, from a cursory glance, saw as important to our site from the council-wide objectives. So, are there any questions in regards?
No, just
to
got
that?
a lot of council-wide briefings to read.
Yeah. Yes. There's and so that is the nature of this. If we're building in the city, working in the city, there is a lot that goes into it because it is it's a multifaceted area. I'll just quickly have a look to see if there's anything else we should be covering at this stage. So what will happen is there'll be more talk about this one in following weeks. But we've got our holidays for 3 weeks, and in that time, look, I'm certainly going to be. You can contact me via email, and you reach me via email. And then if I'm able to produce anything that relates to these things, I'll be putting that up on a video. But I'll send you an email to let you know that video has been put up. You have to develop sheets to meet requirements for planning approval. Cover sheet, 3D view of premises, client name, contact details, project title, site address, student details, sheet schedule. None of that should be new or surprising. Site analysis plan, neighbouring structures. So we have to look at those neighbouring structures. We've done a bit of that today. Have a look for services. So you all know that we can, where we can go looking for services, predominantly SA Map Viewer. Have a look for vegetation. We can have a look for a bit of vegetation both from Google Street View and from SA Map Viewer. But if you've got that opportunity to be in the city, go and have a look. Being a public site, you're able to do that. Fence and shadows. The site plan, probably nothing too surprising here. So north indicator contours, it's going to be very simple on this site. Dimensioned site setbacks, north indicator accurately placed on the sign. Site access egress from roadside and around site. So that's going to be a very important thing for you to think through and work through. So we've already had a look at what is Australian standard for parking? 2890. I get that confused with 2870. So 2890 for parking. So you're going to have to. So you've touched on that a lot with project number 2. Won't be a whole lot of new considerations, but you have to work through those parking facilities in reference to that. Then floor plan, fully dimensioned, north indicator, total floor area, because that total floor area plays into many considerations with the council zoning or the development plan. So overall dimensions, wall openings, external doors and windows, room and wall thicknesses, internal rooms and wall thicknesses, door clearances, etc. And showing door and window tags and wall construction. Select appropriate standardised windows and doors. Okay, I find that that's a little bit. I'm a little bit surprised that that's included in this one, because typically when we're dealing with commercial glazing, we step outside of our standard door and window things, because with a lot of, how to say it, with a lot of commercial glazing, it's we're dealing with very large sizes, and um, and the and the approaches, or the manufacturer's approaches to commercial glazing are that you give them the exact measurements, and they produce the glazing in accordance with those. So maybe I'll have to have a look at that section and see how we deal with that, and whether we're gonna step outside of our standard door and window sizes from from Stegbar or so. Elevations, vertical dimensions including overall height, external materials selected, window direction indicators. So yeah, so we're going to have to be looking at external materials and thinking about what we can use on site. So Council Oval, what's that?
What's that stuff that they're in trouble with at the moment? That cladding?
Oh, a Luca bond?
Yeah, there was a guy, they were having a talk about it yesterday at the place I'm working, and he can't get finance from the bank for his
Right.
building because it's Luca bond, and they won't cover it. Yeah, to
Right.
me that's the face they were doing.
I'm very interested to see what's happening in that space, because both of you know about that.
Yeah, the fires and that.
Yeah. And so, very very interesting. So somebody can't get finance.
Yeah, they can't get finance. They're having trouble with the bank, so they've had to stop everything until that's sorted out, I guess.
Yeah, maybe it's worth investing in people who are producing fibre cement sheet at the moment.
Yeah. Well, it's spot on.
Because there's because that's one of those, essentially one of those replacements for it. There's all these glossy fibre cement sheet products now that look very similar from the outside. So external materials selected, and of course window direction indicators. Sections, 2 longitudinal sections, stair and lift. So it showed roof structure, wall structure and floor structure. Internal materials clearly labelled. For example, if cladding is selected, what kind of cladding, what render and colour. Stairs, including stair numbering to meet compliance, and lift dimensions. Cross section, balcony wet areas, roof structure, wall structure, floor structure. Internal materials clearly labelled. If cladding is selected, what kind of cladding, what render and colour. So one thing I think of as soon as I think of a cross section through a balcony is slopes and our interactions of the balcony, so that external area, internal area. So it's very important, our detailing around that. 3D view to external, minimum 4 internal depicting aspects essential to the build, and important, but we'll touch on this a little bit later. So landscaping plan. So plantings, select a minimum of 5 plants/trees appropriate for their purpose on the allotment. Indicate location on plan with legend stating each plant. Take a snip image of each plant and import onto sheet stating the common name of the tree, evergreen or deciduous. Does that need any clarification? Both of you understand what evergreen trees are and deciduous trees are? Honghui, that's fine with you, is it? Do you know the difference between an evergreen tree and a deciduous tree?
Not all of the tree, but some. I know some of the tree.
Yeah, but for those 2 main classifications of tree, evergreen and deciduous?
Yeah. Evergreen.
Yeah. So expected maximum height, width of tree, in 2 to 5 words, state purpose of tree, plant, etc. So summer shelter, noise control, ground cover. For parking, establish standard parking requirements from allowable number of occupants to the building. So refer to the National Construction Code, Volume 1, Section D13, and then 2, establish disability parking requirements. So refer to AS 2890.1. Existing vegetation, study plan provided for significant trees. Complete forms that may be required to apply to remove necessary trees. So SA Gov regulated and significant trees. So you'll be dealing with significant trees. And door and window schedule, appropriate label of doors, any additional requirements as set out by council. And then submit for approval, council development plan, completed required application forms. Shouldn't be anything too new or surprising in that. Copy of council requirements, fees from the website, copy of conservation requirements request, and PDF of sheet required. Seek feedback and make modifications requested within required time frame. Notify client when approval achieved and supply / submit a full set of required plans and supporting documentation. So similar sort of setup as to the other projects, but this time, dealing with building in the city and the complexities that arise out of that, multi-storey office accommodation and significant trees and having to do landscaping, etc.